This is the Fantasy Roadshow.
Hey, ho, ho. It's the Fantasy Roadshow. What's going on?
Hey, ho, ho. It's Fantasy Roadshow.
What's going on, roadies? Welcome into another episode of the Fantasy Roadshow. We are your hosts, per usual. I am Truck. He is Kulz. You can find us on Twitter, me at fantasy_trucker, him at Kulz_sports. Check out the show at Fantasy Roadshow. Check us out on Twitter at YouTube. On YouTube at youtube.com/sportsethos. And Mike, we got a new logo. We're official,
logo.
Man.
We got a subby stack.
Yeah, Oh yeah, everybody check out our Substack. It's going to be in the description. It's going to be the link in our bios. It's going to be all over the place.
All over.
Sign up and check out all of our rankings updated as much as we can. We'll be putting out written content as well. Anything I missed, Mike, with the Substack? What else are we doing there that I missed?
Yeah, we're going to do our first release of our rankings here right after this weekend if we make any adjustments after the preseason week 2 games, so we know your draft season is starting. So we're gonna release our Substack rankings on Substack. After this weekend. So there's gonna be waiver wire in season waiver wire in season weekly rankings. I don't know. All sorts of fun.
Yeah, all of our
content.
Yes.
Yep.
Anything that you can think of coming from the show is going to be on our Substack. So,
yep.
Make sure you check it out. Mike, what are we getting into today? I think it's a big episode. This is sleepers. Wake the fuck up, Mike. Wake up. Yeah, we're talking sleepers and keepers today.
Sleepers and keepers. Yeah.
You know, Mike, let me preface this. When we started this podcast, this was the episode I was looking forward to. I'm like, you know what? First episode I think of that we're going to need to do, we got to do sleepers. Sleepers is like the biggest fucking, it's not blown out of proportion, but it's definitely the talk of the town in the fantasy industry. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So sleepers and keepers this episode, it's a big one. So buckle up.
All right, so Kulz, you had a very extensive sleepers and keepers article that you wrote, and in there, I really like the way that you describe what we mean by sleepers and keepers. So if you would let the roadies know, so that we can clarify ahead of time, so that there's no confusion.
Yeah. So I think sleeper is a term that needs to be defined because I think people just kind of throw it around and have different meanings for what a sleeper is. And the Fantasy Roadshow, we wanted to make it really clear before releasing our list. And we're kind of going to put players in this category into 2 different buckets, a sleeper and a keeper, because, they are very different. And a sleeper to us is a player. It's very simple. A player who is undervalued based on his ADP. So, a very simple definition for us for sleeper, just undervalued player based on their ADP. And some keeping that to people that are keeping that to players who are drafted. So, you'll hear J.K. Dobbins on my list. I have him as a top 12, top 15 running back. I think he's running back 14, but or even like for example, like Amari Cooper. So he's someone that's going in the first, few rounds, but we feel that he is undervalued based on where he's being drafted and that he's going to be a, top 15 wide receiver. So that's just a couple examples. We'll get into it later, but and then keeper is like a late round flyer. Someone who like a Roshan Johnson, he's actually kind of clawing his way into being, drafted in every league. So he may fit that keeper category or the sleeper category soon, but right now, late round flyer on Roshan Johnson, he's someone who his his role is going to continue to grow throughout the year and have a lot of momentum going into next year. So someone you can draft in the later rounds, who's, outplaying his value throughout the season, certainly not going into next year. And then Ryan, if you want to explain keeper leagues a little bit, like that's where we got the term keeper from. But
yeah. If you're not familiar with a keeper league, it's basically a league where you're allowed to keep a few players from your current draft and bring them into the next season. So you want to grab these guys late, people that have roles increasing and that are going to have much more value going into next year. A lot of leagues have different keeper rules, so that we're not really going to go too much and really talk about them as a keeper in a keeper league, but just what Mike said, late round flyers that if you are in a keeper league, you should be considering them, drafting them, and holding them for next season. So that's pretty much it.
Yep. So that kind of laying the foundation for what we're going to talk about here today. Let's get into it. If you want to start out with quarterback sleeper, and
yeah,
we will...
as I was looking at the quarterbacks when I was getting ready for this episode, I realized that my idea of the rankings for quarterbacks, it's not totally spot on to where they're being drafted, but there's not a lot of large discrepancies. I have Tua a little bit higher, but not much enough to call him a sleeper. I only have one guy that I really consider a sleeper for a quarterback, and that's Matthew Stafford. He's being drafted at quarterback 22, and I have him up at quarterback 14. It's the biggest variance that I have in my rankings from the ADP. And, 2 years ago, he was the number 5 quarterback. He still is throwing the ball to Cooper Kupp, who is one of the best wide receivers in the league. Stafford came out and said he's feeling the healthiest he's ever felt in his career. So, take that with a grain of salt. But I think he's being drafted too late, and I'd be fine with him on my roster going into this season. I'm actually going to be targeting him in most drafts.
Yeah, I love Stafford. I totally agree with that pick. I think that the Rams are going to be a lot better than a lot of the public, I think, views them, coming off a really bad year last year and just kind of think like, oh, that Super Bowl team is done. The defense is pretty bad, so they're going to need a lot of young guys to step up in order to kind of really win ball games. But does that could end up, making Stafford have a better fantasy year because of it, because if they're throwing the ball more, coming back from behind, getting some garbage time points. So I think the offense with Cam Akers is going to, who I believe we'll be talking about as well in this show. But Cam Akers, like, he's going to play a huge role in that offense in order to restore it to that Super Bowl form, because you don't have Robert Woods, who is a huge part, but you have Cooper Kupp, you have Tyler Higbee, and then Van Jefferson is a guy that we thought was going to step up into that Woods role last year, but never really happened. And I wouldn't say it's necessarily a Van Jefferson thing as much as it could be could be more of like that offense just never got it going last year. So yeah. Healthy Stafford, I mean, they should be able, they still have good pieces. You hear about Puka Nacua, I think we'll talk about well later, but I mean, Akers to me if he can step up and be a lead running back and a workhorse back in that offense, then I think they can have a lot of success opening up Kupp and just letting him go to town. So I completely agree with that pick. I co-sign that. And then my sleeper is Jordan Love. I've talked about him multiple times. He's going as ADP QB 20, and I have him ranked at 16. Again, quarterbacks, you're not going to see these crazy discrepancies, but because there's 32 that start. But Love to me is someone who he is climbing up the draft boards a little bit. I think earlier in the year he was, when I first wrote this article, he was QB 24, but I just think he looks good. Every time last year that he came in the game, he looked good. He's been looking good all preseason. Any clips you're seeing in camp, he's been looking good. It's very underrated how sitting behind Aaron Rodgers and seeing one of the best to ever play the game, navigate, lead, in offense. So naturally he picked up some skills from that, but also like you have Aaron Jones, who was Rodgers's guy, AJ Dillon, who was there for long enough as well. But, Aaron Jones is a guy that he can lean on as a veteran presence as he's growing confidence in that offense. And if they come out and win some games and instill a little bit of confidence in that offense with young pieces of, Dobbs and Watson, who've now on their second year have been there for an entire year, but then you have the 2 rookie tight ends and Jaden Reed, of course. They can all grow together and I think grow pretty quickly. So, it's a bunch of young guys relating. And if Love shows them that he is a guy and a leader that can lead an offense, they have the defense to be a very good football team. So I just believe in Jordan Love, end of story. That's kind of why I have him, outplaying that ADP, but certainly being a starting quarterback in this league for years to come.
Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, Jordan Love, the expectations aren't very high right now. Like there's not too much hype around him. A lot of people are almost considering him like, is he even going to get another contract after this year? So there's a lot of young talent around him, and the veteran presence in their running back room with Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon on a contract year, man. And then those 2 rookie tight ends, like you mentioned, he could easily have a top 15 type of season. And that's definitely a possibility, especially if they run the ball really well and just kind of, keep defenses honest. And yeah, I definitely see that. So, do you have any other sleepers you want to talk about, or you want to just dive right into keepers for the quarterback position?
No, that's my only sleeper. Keepers, I can be quick. It's Bryce Young, ADP 25. I have him ranked at 18. And CJ Stroud, QB 28. I have them at 22. So this year I have them outperforming their ADP, but also, getting the rookie year under their belt, going through a lot of growing pains. And then I think if you draft them late as keepers, then they can really step up and be, big time quarterbacks in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few that want to mention. Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder is going at quarterback 30, which is, obviously really low. I am up at 27, not much higher, but he's someone that with that amazing young, talented offense with Bijan, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts, if he ends up figuring it out somehow, man, he's going to be pretty good, and the team's going to be pretty good behind him. So, he's someone that I'm looking at later on in drafts as a keeper.
Yeah, his upside is so high. For me, that's what it is with Ridder, is his upside is so high.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a little concerning yesterday, just like Pitts and you saw Pitts and Bijan have 2 good catches on balls that were thrown. There were 2 one-handed catches on balls that were thrown behind them. But then he has a great throw to Drake London down the sideline. So you have to find some consistency with your arm. But you saw his, running game. He's got to figure it out. But
yeah. And then one other person that I consider a sleeper is Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray with this injury, he's coming back from
keeper. Yeah,
I'm sorry. Yeah, keeper. Kyler Murray is for me is considered a keeper. If you're in a keeper league, absolutely be grabbing Kyler Murray, because when he comes back, I think he's going to come back strong. I think he's going to come back around week 4 of this season, depending on how the team is, but that's completely up in the air. So I don't blame you for not drafting him if you're not in a keeper league. But if you draft a quarterback later on in drafts and you're not really excited about him, like a Geno Smith or Jared Goff, and that's your QB1, definitely grab Kyler, because if he ends up coming back, he's going to be coming back strong and play very well towards the end of the season, and may be your guy. So someone to keep an eye on.
He's interesting because I would consider him on both my do not draft list and my keeper list.
Exactly.
He's definitely someone that is probably the best quarterback keeper pick, because we've seen what he's done in the league, and he may not even be a Cardinal next year, but
very possible.
People will forget about him in the drafts, and you can get him late and then have him as a 12th, 14th round keeper for next year. So I agree with that. One person I want to mention quickly, who I don't have in the article yet, but I'm going to add him, is Kenny Pickett. I think he looks outstanding. And I always thought he was the franchise quarterback for the Steelers after last year, and that him and Pickens have something super special. But he's from what you can tell in preseason so far and what we've been hearing, the buzz around camp is that he has already taken it to the next level. So mark me down for Kenny Pickett. I'm really excited to see the Steelers team grow this year and just be an exciting team to watch again in a great division.
Yeah, I have never really been a Pickett fan from what I saw last year, but he's definitely growing on me. He's looking pretty good this offseason. And I mean, he's got talented receivers to throw to, so he could definitely his expectations aren't that high right now. So I expect him to be pretty good.
Let's move on to running backs. When I was talking about, I think it was Love. Something must have been up on your screen that was red because I was about to stop and call you Hellboy because your face was just.
I have I have the preseason football games on literally like right here, so it's like you're gonna see colors on my face change a little bit. So
yeah, it was just beat red, and I was like, kept distracting me. It was funny.
Sorry,
let's talk.
Let that not be distracting.
No, it was really funny. So running backs, J.K. Dobbins. I said him earlier. He's drafted at ADP 21. I have him at 14. His talent's just incredible. He's going to be on an offense that I think is going to be moving a lot quicker this year and opening up the field a lot more, and he's just going to benefit from that. I just think he's the perfect kind of read option type running back with Lamar that if you give him space, he can do some damage with it. So I expect him to be healthy, or I'm hopeful that he's going to be healthy all year. And if he is, then he's going to be a top 15, top 10 running back. So I have J.K. Dobbins. What you got anything to add there?
No, I mean, J.K. Dobbins is one of those guys that they're being drafted too late, and he's going to be in a great offense. He's the lead guy, and the sky's the limit for J.K., man. I could see him easily being a top 10 running back. If everything goes well for him and he scores a ton of touchdowns, like, dude, he can have double-digit touchdowns well over 1,000 yards and be pretty active in the passing game too. So, I totally understand that one. One guy I want to bring up is someone you mentioned earlier is Cam Akers. Cam Akers is someone, we're targeting him all over the place in drafts, man. He's going as running back 24. I have him up at 18, and I feel like I just keep wanting to push him up and up and up the rankings, you know?
Yeah, he's my RB 16.
Yeah, exactly. So, Cam Akers, what was it? Last season, he had, towards the end of the year last year, he was killing it. He had, let me pull it up real quick. I think it was the last 3 games averaging over 20 carries, over 100 yards, and with the game scoring 3 touchdowns in one game. So, when they turned to him and be the guy and gave him a ton of the workload, he really produced, and I'm expecting him to continue off that success from last season. And like we said, the Rams should be better than everyone thinks. So I'm grabbing Cam Akers as a sleeper for sure.
Yeah, last 3 games, it's actually in my article here. Last 3 games of the season, 63 carries, 345 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
He's going to be fed well this year. He's going to have the opportunity to be a workhorse back, and he's just going to capitalize, in my mind. 2 years off that Achilles, healthy and in an offense that I think is going to be much improved, and the public's going to be pretty down on all year, and there's going to be opportunity there. So, I mean, you can see by his ADP. Someone else that's just in that same range. You said we were kind of peppering that whole range. Rachaad White.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be on a pretty bad team, but his talent is really good. Like, I think the knock on him was his yards per carry or his yards after contact. There's some stat that everyone points to, but honestly, like, he is an athletic, good running back, and he's going to catch 80 balls. He has the quarterback in Baker Mayfield, who checks down more than any quarterback in the NFL, and I think he's going to catch 80 balls this year. Yep.
Yeah, Rachaad White's really interesting, man. I don't know, man. I feel like Baker might actually be playing pretty well this season with, I mean, you're throwing the ball to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So Rachaad White, man, we're definitely targeting players in this range, and that's all we can say about it because he's definitely being drafted too low, in my opinion.
Yeah. Who else you got here for sleepers?
I have a couple of the guys here. I'm looking at Antonio Gibson being drafted as running back 32. I recently moved him up to 26. I really, really like Antonio Gibson, and that's partly because I really, really, really don't like Brian Robinson. And, Eric Bieniemy's the new offensive coordinator there in Washington. And Antonio Gibson's a guy, man. We've seen him have a top 12 season before. It's definitely in the range of possibilities for him, and I'm grabbing Antonio Gibson there in those middle rounds as much as possible. So
yeah, you've always been a Gibson guy, and I've never been a Gibson guy. But now that he has, I love. First of all, I've not regretted, but he's a good running back. He makes awesome plays. He looks good.
Yeah.
And he's started as a wide receiver. So even if Brian Robinson's all right, here's my take on Brian Robinson. I think he kind of has a long leash in a weird way because the Commanders really do believe in him. So I just think he kind of has a little bit longer of a leash, which may cap Gibson's ceiling this year. I don't know that they go to him right away. But even so, they can line him up and get creative. Bieniemy will get creative with Gibson because of how talented he is and his experience at wide receiver. So his floor's high as well to me. But if he comes out and is just making these great plays and Robinson is just your boring, gets 3 yards per carry, kind of just snail running back, then I can see Gibson taking over target share, taking over production pretty quickly. But that being said, they're gonna give Brian Robinson a pretty, I think pretty long. I just don't see them moving on from him right away. Because if they are bad, if the Commanders end up being bad, which I kind of think they will be, then they're just gonna be one of those teams that punt this year to get one of those top picks, and then just it doesn't really matter if.
Yeah, but even if they're losing all these games and they're playing from behind, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot, And Antonio Gibson last year, he had a career high in targets, yards, and receptions. So I think Bieniemy sees that he's the pass catching guy, and he'll be on the field a lot more often because the Commanders are going to be losing these games. So.
We both like Gibson. So the last person I have on my sleeper list is Jeff Wilson. And now I hear that A-Chain was carted off. It makes me like Wilson even more. I don't know how serious that is. I think I just saw that it was an AC sprain, but anyways, Wilson could shoot up he's drafted at RB 56 right now. I have him at 44, and he could shoot up if that is serious. I also read an article that said it was McDaniel talking about being, very content and happy, excited about our running back room without missing out on Cook. And a lot of that has to do with Jeff Wilson and how energetic and just ready to go he is for this year. We haven't seen him yet at all in the preseason, but supposedly he looks great and he's going to be healthy here for the start of the season, and is the main reason why he was just we got Jeff Wilson. It's going to be a 3-headed monster. Even what is his name? Ahmed. Ahmed's an explosive running back. You could fit him into that scheme and he's going to do well. So there is a lot of mouths to feed in that backfield, but I think Wilson's going to be a huge part of that. Probably lead the team in rushing touchdowns for sure, but I could see yards as well.
Yeah, definitely. Jeff Wilson's someone we have a large target or a large share of, and 35% share in best ball draft. So I'm very happy about that situation, but also I had Devon A-Chain on my sleepers list. But I recently just took him off because of this whole injury. I don't know. It's undisclosed. We're still waiting on information. But, if A-Chain was going to be fully healthy, I thought he was really going to be able to carve out a role in this offense and be explosive. But I now veered away from that, and I'm going to go with Jerome Ford.
Well, let's talk about A-Chain real quick. So,
okay.
Say it's just a shoulder thing, like.
Yeah, the AC, if it's the AC joint, that's a pretty severe shoulder thing where it kind of lingers, where it's gonna
we'll
be a couple
see.
weeks.
I just want to talk about a healthy A-Chain.
Okay, fully healthy A-Chain.
I agree that he is explosive and looks really good and fits that offense really well. I just don't know, because there's so many mouths to feed, are you going to be able to count on really any of these guys from a redraft standpoint with all three healthy? Are you going to be able to count on flexing one? Certainly not as your RB2, but flexing one of them. I mean,
well, we saw last year. Last year it was difficult to
type guy.
Yeah, last year it was difficult to figure out who to start on a weekly basis between Jeff Wilson and Mostert. They were both going to have games. They both had weeks where they were actually pretty good, but I would say that he's a sleeper in my category as a fully healthy A-Chain because I think he's the most talented. Jeff Wilson's been around for a while, and he's never really been a starting running back. He spent all those years on San Francisco as the third string back coming in when everyone else was injured, and he actually played really well, but he's never been the guy. And he's 27, 28 years old now. So I think A-Chain comes in, proves that he's the most talented running back. He's exactly what McDaniels is looking for over there in that offense. And I think by mid-season, towards the end of the year, he has a large enough work share where he ends up producing really good numbers with that workload. So,
yeah, what does that look like, though? 15 touch max kind of guy, right? Because he's so tiny. I mean, you saw him. He literally got slammed and was injured. So I don't know that you can give him more than 15 touches. That being said, with 15 touches, he probably does a lot with it. To me, he's kind of almost like a DeAndre Swift, to where you can't really give him a big share. I don't know. I like him. Don't get me wrong. I hate that he went to Texas A&M because I hate Texas A&M. But I'm always worried about. Yeah, I'm just always worried about backs like him who are so small, and I don't know. I feel like I never personally go after the small boom or bust type running backs. I'm more of a volume kind of running back guy, I feel like. But yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, especially from a best ball standpoint. I don't think I'll have any of these Miami running backs on my redraft teams, but in best ball, sure, give me any of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For exactly what you talked about. They're going to have games, but I just don't like to start a running back like that and then swing and miss, and then I have a hole in my lineup. You know what I mean? I almost like those decent wide receivers that'll get you 5 catches a game for 50 yards, and you just plug a 10-point guy in your flex and look for the big swings elsewhere. I don't know. That's just how I personally like to play fantasy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Jerome Ford, talk about him.
Jerome Ford's going as
keepers.
He's a sleeper to me, man. He's with being at 50, running back 57. I have him up at 46. He's someone that I'm grabbing later on in drafts. We've seen what the Chiefs do. I'm sorry, not the Chiefs, the Browns. What the Browns do with the 2 running backs. We've seen that before. Obviously, that's with Kareem Hunt, and we don't know if Jerome Ford is like a Kareem Hunt, but they're willing to use 2 backs. So I think Jerome Ford carves out a nice role. He's a perfect handcuff if I'm drafting Nick Chubb, but I kind of like Jerome Ford as standalone value. I mean, I don't know. What do you think about Ford? I know he's on your list as well.
Yeah, I have him as keepers. He's probably fringe sleeper keeper to me because I will have him on my redraft rosters because I think there is potentially a role for him. I don't know. We'll see, man. Is it going to be the Hunt role? Then yes, there's a role for him on your team, on your bench.
Yeah.
But if it's not, if it's a more diluted version of that, then probably not. But the injury upside is huge, obviously. It's going to come down to how much they ride Chubb, which you think because they run him so heavily that there will be a significant role for a second running back there. And then in that case, it is Jerome Ford. So, yeah, I think there's standalone-ish type. There's standalone value. Yeah, there's potentially standalone value depending on how they run them. So, definitely like Ford. Do you have any other sleepers, or was that it?
No, that's about it, man. I just have a couple of keepers I wanted to mention.
Yeah, my keepers, Roshan Johnson, Ty Chandler.
Yeah.
Roshan looked outstanding in preseason. He looks like he can potentially be a 3-down back eventually. I don't think he will for a while. You've heard me talk now in a couple of podcasts about him and Herbert being a really good yin and yang there. And then Ty Chandler, I'll talk briefly about him too, but I think it's important because he's someone that I personally am not a believer in Alex Madison. So that's a very big, high producing fantasy position is the Vikings running back. And I'm not a big believer in Madison. So I think that RB2 for the Vikings is going to have a very high potential to either steal target share or eventually maybe look better and take over that role. And Ty Chandler is the guy that's standing out to me there. So I think he is a great pick late in drafts.
Yeah, I like that. I have two guys I wanted to mention is Jalen Warren and Tyjae Spears. Warren's going at 44. Spears is going at 55. Warren, I don't know if you watched the preseason.
Did you have him on your list before he just broke a 62-yarder?
I did. Yeah, that's why I was happy I was going to mention him because he just broke a massive touchdown. He looks good, man. And the Steelers seem like they want to use him pretty often. So it's still to be determined how that workload is going to be split up between Harris and Warren, but I think Warren's going to be, on the field quite a bit. So he's someone that could carve out a nice role and be, kind of trusted in a flex spot here and there on a spot start. And then Tyjae Spears, I mean, Derrick Henry did really well in the passing game last year, but I don't know if they really want to use him like that. They want to have him be that bruiser. So Tyjae Spears comes in and could be like an auxiliary piece to Derrick Henry. And pretty active in the passing game. He's very athletic, and in college he just dominated and just made those defenses look silly. So he's someone I'm looking at later on in drafts as a keeper. Jalen Warren and Tyjae Spears.
Yeah, I love Tyjae Spears. I think he can be the lightning to Derrick Henry thunder.
I like that.
As he gets up in age, I just think that Spears can take a little bit of that role, keep Henry fresh, and be confident in that, in splitting that time with Spears. So I like Spears a lot. He looks really good. So on the same page there.
Let's go to wide receivers then.
Yeah, Amari Cooper. I mean, I don't really need to speak too much about him. Coop's a ball hawk. He's outstanding talent. That's an offense I think is going to be very improved in a team that is going to be right there with the Ravens and the Bengals. I mean, two of the best teams in the AFC, and I think that the Browns will be in every single game with them. So should be in a very good, very talented division, and I just love Cooper. He's a ball hawk.
Yeah, Amari Cooper is one of those guys that I feel like every chance I'm in a mock draft and I'm like, he's right there, I'm usually drafting him over like the 5 receivers that are above him in rankings. Yep. So, it's been a very common thing for me grabbing him in drafts. So yeah, I love Amari Cooper this year, and he should be doing great.
Might as well talk about Elijah Moore as well. Since we're already talking Cooper, like Elijah Moore, ADP, he's wide receiver 43. I have him at 36. And he's, Stefanski already said it was like coaching Eli is like coaching Percy Harvin. You can line him up anywhere and like just get him the ball. He's gonna make a play.
I called him positionless. That was awesome.
Yeah. So like Elijah Moore is in the same spot as DJ Watson, or Deshaun Watson, looking to kind of revamp their careers together, have this like next rebirth. So I love that too. And Watson's loved him. So Elijah Moore, I want on every single one of my teams, literally every team. So
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, he even came out and he told everybody, he said, if you don't draft me, you're going to regret it. So don't be on that side of the fence, people. Draft Elijah Moore any chance you can.
You got to love the guys that like talk about fantasy football. Like,
I love it.
I mean, Austin Eckler is one of them, and look what he's done the last couple of years. But
massive.
Yeah, I love that comment for Elijah Moore. It just makes me like him even more.
Yeah, absolutely, man. My next wide receiver is Nico Collins. Nico Collins is someone that's going very, very late in drafts. He's wide receiver 53. I've met at 48, not that much higher, but higher enough where I'm usually grabbing him in that pocket of players over the other ones. Stroud's looking okay right now. He hasn't looked top of the line in these preseason games, but I'm pretty confident that Stroud's going to figure it out pretty early in this season, and Nico Collins is going to be his number one receiver. I'm pretty excited about him, and like I said, I'm grabbing him later on in those drafts, and I think he's a sleeper. So,
yeah, I have him on my keeper list. He's someone that like I have him as wide receiver. I have him at he's at wide receiver 53. I have him at 49, and I think he can outplay that for sure. But as that offense and that team gets better, I think he's going to get better. So for me, like draft him late. I think he's going to be able to sit on your bench all year and be a player you can count on whenever you need to plug him in. But I expect his like big breakout to be next year with that kind of second year of Stroud. I think you'll see flashes, but there's going to be a lot of growing pains. That's just kind of who Stroud is. You saw he's looked really bad in preseason, and he's looked pretty good. He's made some really good throws, and you can see that the arm talent and the talent is there. So once he kind of figures out the NFL game a little bit, his talent's going to be there. So, I agree.
Yeah.
Ayuk.
You love Brandon Ayuk, man.
I love Brandon Ayuk. I have always loved Brandon Ayuk, and I think this year he's going to take an even bigger step forward. Wide receiver 27, I have him at 15. I don't care who's quarterback throwing the ball. They're going to be able to find Ayuk, and he's just the best talent in that receiving room, like by far, in terms of just pure athleticism. So supposedly he's unguardable is what all the 49ers secondary is saying. He's unguardable this year. So you just love to hear that. Give me Ayuk. George Pickens, I want to talk about him as well. Like that's another guy to talk about unguardable. We've seen the tape on him, and he is someone that him and Pickett, I've always talked about their like chemistry together and how it's, one of a kind, kind of like Burrow and Chase. So I think I think Pickens is another guy I'm pretty much drafting on every single team. Wide receiver 36, I have him at 27. He could literally be top 15 as well. If Pickett is as good as he's looked early in preseason, then Pickens could be a top 15 wide receiver this year. So trying to get him in every single draft too.
Yeah, it's just to me, it's inevitable that George Pickens is going to be an elite wide receiver, like in conversation with Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, those guys that are just so athletic and they're so good at football. Pickens to me is going to be in that category eventually. So whenever that happens, if this year or next year, I totally understand that take. Someone else I want to bring up is Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk is a sleeper for me. Everybody is hyping up Calvin Ridley, and for good reason. Calvin Ridley is a very, very good receiver, and he's going to be the number one receiver there in Jacksonville in an ascending offense. But Christian Kirk is going to get his too. I project both of them being over 1,000 yards receivers, and Kirk is just going too late, man. I'm grabbing him ahead of a few other guys in that range. He's always someone I'm looking at in drafts, and he's a sleeper in my opinion for sure.
Yeah, I love Kirk. He's just such a good wide receiver 2. Last year he played that wide receiver 1 role and was awesome. I think the Jags offense as a whole takes a huge step forward. Trevor Lawrence is gaining confidence in who he is. Obviously had that mess of an Urban Meyer year, but first year under Doug Peterson took a huge step forward. This year, an even bigger step forward. Now you have a true wide receiver 1 in Ridley. Christian Kirk is kind of back into his wide receiver 2 role that he's kind of been in and had so much success in. So I think that's going to benefit him. And he's just, as you saw in the first preseason game, like he's still that guy who Lawrence counts on most in the red zone, and he's going to have a ton of touchdowns like he always does. So, yeah, I mean, I love Christian Kirk, and perfect segue into a guy that also in the red zone and just is able to find space and find those pockets and score touchdowns. Jahan Dotson.
Jahan Dotson.
I have Jahan closing the gap on Terry McLaurin, just like Pickens is on Deontay Johnson. And they're either both going to be, surpass those wide receiver ones or be there. I mean, I think Pickens could I would say Pickens definitely is going to surpass Deontay this year. And I think Jahan has a good shot to be nipping at McLaurin's heels as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. Pickens is probably in line more so than Jahan Dotson. I still like McLaurin. I think McLaurin is still a phenomenal wide receiver, and he is going to be the number 1 all year. But that doesn't mean Dotson isn't going to score more touchdowns. That doesn't mean Dotson won't have more yards. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that whole A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith scenario for me, where A.J. Brown had more touchdowns, but Devonta had more receptions and more not as many yards, but still he had more receptions. So I see it very similar to that. Dotson will be creeping up. So I love that pick. What about keepers? I have a couple guys for keepers is Tank Dell and Jaden Reed. I talked about a Houston wide receiver with my sleepers, and Tank Dell for me is someone in a keeper category where, he could outproduce his ADP right now as wide receiver 77. Like he's, maybe hardly being drafted. And Jaden Reed is at 72. So they're two guys that I think you should be drafting, in your last round of fantasy drafts, because they could find a role this season and definitely into next year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I absolutely love Jaden Reed. He's already won that slot role for the Packers, and I love him even more because Love is a first-year starter. He hasn't established he doesn't have his established go-to guys yet. So Reed being a rookie, he's a rookie, but he could literally step in with a first-year quarterback and end up being one of his guys, and that could be absolutely massive. But regardless, he's going to start in the slot, so I love that. I have him as well on my keeper list. I have Marvin Mims, another rookie who, how Russell likes that deep ball. I could see him being that guy for the Broncos. And then Puka Nacua, he's a guy who could step in and have a legitimate role this year. Supposedly him and Stafford have a good connection here in preseason. So
I've been seeing a lot of really good clips from their camp, and Puka is the main beneficiary to that. So
so he could have a role this season. Another guy I have on here is DJ Chark. And maybe he should more so be like a sleeper, like a late sleeper, because he could be receiver 1. And I don't necessarily think the role would get any better. If he is a wide receiver 1 for that team this year, then that's his role, and he's going to be awesome and wildly outperform his ADP. So he's a guy that I like late in drafts for sure. And then the other guy I want to name is Richie James, and I just think he's a good wide receiver, actually good. And he had a little bit of success with the Giants, but now he has Patrick Mahomes, and Patrick Mahomes needs to find someone quickly who he can count on. MVS is just kind of MVS. You're not going to see much more than we've seen out of him in that offense. Sky Moore should take a huge step forward, but someone that you can count on if Richie James ends up being that guy he kind of was in New York, that you can give the ball. I mean, just a sure-handed receiver that would catch 5 balls a game. Patrick Mahomes loves sure-handed receivers.
Definitely.
And he's going to be looking for someone to take a little bit of attention away from Kelsey. I don't know that we're going to see Kelsey being, he's still going to be a massive, massive part of that offense, but you can't keep throwing him. I don't know how many targets did he have last year?
A shit ton. That's how many.
Yeah. It felt like every game it was just Kelsey, and something's going to have to change there a little bit.
Yeah, you would think so. But I don't know, man. I'm still out on these Chiefs wide receivers. Like, obviously Sky Moore is the most interesting one, but I think it may end up just being like previous years where he's going to get everybody involved, and you never know who it's going to be in the wide receiver room. MVS is going to have games, Sky Moore is going to have games, and I'm sure Richie James is going to have games too, because he is a good receiver, and Mahomes is going to get him the ball. So, but definitely I could see him. Someone's got to carve out a role there. So why not
that's
him?
why I'm not out on the Chiefs receivers. I'm out on Kadarius Toney. Any other Chiefs receiver?
We didn't even mention him at all.
I think any other Chief receiver is, in my mind, I'm in on, because of the opportunity that they could potentially be a guy for Patrick Mahomes. So that carries so much value, and they're not being drafted. Richie James is the 5th receiver. He'll probably go undrafted. I think he's worth a last round pick. Stash on your bench. Keep hearing good things about him in camp, and then you never know. You might have someone that, has a couple touchdowns in the first 4 weeks and is completely worth the last round dart. So, that's that's the rest of my keepers there.
Yeah. I like it, Mike. I like it. Let's get into tight ends, huh? How about it? I'll kick it off. One tight end that I'm really high on that others don't seem to be is Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki for the Patriots, man. Yes, he is the tight end too, but they don't look at him as just a tight end. He's playing that tight end wide receiver hybrid role, as they stated. That's why they got him. He's playing in the slot a lot. He wasn't even really practicing fully with slot a lot. He wasn't even practicing fully with the tight ends. He was practicing a lot with the wide receivers. So with that wide receiver room being unestablished, and you never know really who's going to come out, I think Gesicki is going to be heavily used in that wide receiver room. So
you just like his name because it's so similar to mine.
For all the roadies out there that don't know Kulz's last name, it's Kulzicki. So it's Gesicki and Kulzicki. Yes, Mike.
Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki.
You're absolutely right. They may be why that's the only reason I like him, because it's so close.
Mike Gesicki.
Yeah, he's being drafted as tight end 33. I got him up at 16. He's someone I'm willing to take a chance on late.
Yeah, Mike Gesicki. It could literally someone could be talking like, and it could be could very well be my name, Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki. So yeah, I like Gesicki. We have a very healthy share of him.
We do.
Late dart throw in underdog drafts, but to me, it's Dalton Kincaid. I love Kincaid. Anyone knows that. Everyone knows how big of a Kincaid guy I am. I traded in your league. I traded a 2nd and 3rd round pick to move up and get Kincaid. Just absolutely love him. I think the fact that he's a tight end, he's rostered as a tight end, and he's going to have wide receiver type numbers. He's playing in the slot. He's playing in the backfield. He's playing all over. He got 100% of first team reps in their first preseason game. I don't know the exact numbers, but I think he got 100% snap rate again today. Had a couple great catches early on from what I saw, but he's going to have wide receiver numbers as a tight end, which is simply going to put him in the top 5 of tight ends. So if he can get going early, then I expect him to be in the top 5. Right now I have him at 6, but I would move him up. So Kincaid, give me every single Kincaid share I could possibly have. If I don't have him on every team this year, then I've failed miserably. And if I don't have him, if I don't have him, I do have Greg Dulcich. I will not strike out on both of them in a draft, or I'll probably quit the league and just pay the fee and just say, like, here, give my team to someone else. But Dulcich, amazing talent. Russell Wilson loves to get the tight end going, and so does Sean Payton. So give me every share of Dulcich, tight end 13. So
yeah, I mean, not much to say there. Peyton came out and said that he's going to be the joker of the offense. Like, he's going to be mismatches all over the field with him.
He's a
and
stud, man. Look at his highlight tape. If you haven't seen, type in Greg Dulcich UCLA highlights. If you aren't familiar with him. So
yeah, get familiar, because he's going to have a big season, man. Absolutely. My other tight end that I have in my sleeper category is Cole Kmet. I really like Cole Kmet. He's being drafted as tight end 15. I would take him right around tight end 11 on that fringe top 10. Cole Kmet, you gotta draft Cole Kmet. Okay, he's going as wide receiver, tight end 15, which is way too late. You fucking bozos. And I'd take him at 11. I mean, why? He's last 10 games of the season, he had 7 touchdowns. Like, come on.
You gotta go. You gotta go.
Respect.
You gotta go out and get Cole Kmet on the Bears. This is a guy that they just paid him a good chunk of money.
They gave a big old bag.
Justin Fields' guy from last year. I mean, Kmet's going to get the ball in the end zone, and Kmet's going to score touchdowns. So he's going to be one of those guys that's going to step up. He's going to have about 60, 70 catches, 600 to 700 yards, and about 10 touchdowns.
Hey, Coles, I couldn't have said it better myself, okay? It was a phenomenally job done, okay? Hey, how about oh, that was nice. That was fun. But as far as
Sam
keepers
Laporta,
go,
Trey McBride, Luke Musgrave. That's
everybody on my list, Mike.
That's who I got.
Everybody on my list. Yeah.
That's who I got for you.
Yeah, McBride is down at tight end 31. Musgrave is up at 24, and Laporta is up at 16. So people are catching on with Laporta. He looks good, man. He's got a good build to him. And we've seen
hitter
Detroit.
Notes. I cut you off. You're about to say it. Like, Hawkinson's role in Detroit was great.
Yeah.
That's where you can expect Laporta to be, right? Like, Jameson Williams is out, 6 games?
Yep, and that's why I think Laporta has a nice connection with Goff pretty early.
Early, and then that's just going to carry on throughout the year, throughout his career. Yeah, 100%. You're right. Iowa tight end that looks great. Trey McBride, another guy. Look at his college numbers. They were insane. He had wide receiver numbers. He's an incredible talent. He's been learning from Zach Ertz. Like, who better in the league right now as a veteran tight end on his way out would you want to learn from than Zach Ertz?
Yeah. And not to mention, McBride is built like a brick house. The guy is jacked.
Yeah. Hadn't you not really? You weren't familiar with?
Yeah, and I looked up a picture of him, and he's just flexing in the camera, and he's just I was like, holy shit, this guy is fucking jacked.
Yeah, and he's a great receiver. I mean, his numbers at Colorado State were just, and his highlights too. I mean, he was a stud at Colorado State, and I expect that. Whether it's this year because the team's going to be pretty bad, I don't know, but he's learning from Zach Ertz, and he is a crazy good receiving talent. So get familiar with Trey McBride if you're not. And then Musgrave, we've already heard about him. I mean, clocked in at 25 miles per hour as a 6'6" tight end. Insane. Whatever that. I don't even believe that, but yeah, that apparently happened. So go get Luke Musgrave. He's starting tight end for the Packers.
Yep. All right, well, that about does it for our sleepers and keepers over here at the Fantasy Road Show. We appreciate you guys listening and checking us out. Make sure you check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/sportsethos. Follow us on Twitter. Don't
forget about Cole Kmet.
Yeah, don't you forget, okay?
I don't want to tell you. I don't know how many times I got to tell you. Cole Kmet he's a Notre Dame guy. He's a Chicago Irish guy. He's a fucking Bear.
That Bears.
Sorry. Follow us on Twitter at Kulz_sports, at fantasy_trucker, at Fantasy Roadshow. We got a Substack coming for you. What else we got for him, right? YouTube.com/sportsethos.
Yep.
New album art. Check that out.
Yeah.
Gonna have some cool
more to
things
come
coming
too.
with that. More to come. Yeah. So signing off.
Buckle the fuck up.